want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you.
Stay all day.
It's no better than this. You are tuned in to the only show where you will learn and pull out of yourself the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you have expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, we'll give you a little bit more. You're going to get the personal initiative, the go-getter energy that moves you, me, and everybody else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one package, and what you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the podcast known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is how to build mental strength before you build physical strength. Why, and is also could be, you could also title this, why mental strength needs to be built before you build physical strength. Why it would benefit you to have the mental strength in place before you have the physical strength in place, and why if you do this equation, you work this equation backwards, it could hurt you in the long run. Strength and power, ladies and gentlemen, do not start in the gym. They don't start in the weight room. They do not start even in the actions that you take. They are developed in the mind before they occur in the body, before they occur in anything that is tangible, anything that can be seen, anything that can be recorded, anything that can be watched and observed. You develop them internally first. And today's topic is about showing you how that works and what you can do with it. You need to understand how and why it works, then understand what you can do with it. So let's get straight into it. Point number one, today's topic, once again, is how to build mental strength before physical strength, or why mental strength comes before physical strength. Point number one is the mind controls the body. There are men walking the streets and women walking the streets who have huge muscles. Maybe some of you have experienced this. You see somebody who has these really big muscles, but if they are tested or challenged in any way, you find out that they have very little courage, very little mental toughness, very little internal strength, very little internal fortitude. Maybe and where I come from, we call it having heart. Maybe they don't have too much of it, even though they got the big muscles, even though they obviously spend a whole lot of time in the weight room, even though they may be in great physical shape, they don't have the internal toughness to match their external toughness. Any of you ever seen that? Or what appears to be external toughness, let's say that. And there are men out there who have never lifted a weight, and women who've never lifted a weight in their lives, but if challenged, if tested, when they need to be, they're tougher than the bodybuilders. Any of you ever experienced this before? So how is this possible? Well, there's this book called the Ellipses Manual, written by a guy named Chase Hughes. He's an intelligence behavior expert. I think I came across Chase. I heard him on somebody else's show. He was on somebody's maybe podcast, and I really liked what he was talking about. So I went and got his book, and I read this book. It's called the Ellipses Manual. It's all about intelligence behavior. A lot of it is kind of for, the way I would describe it, the book is like for somebody who may be an investigator or a negotiator or someone who does questioning. Like if you work for the police and you do the questioning of somebody, that's what this book is all about. It's all about seeing through somebody's external facade or external presentation and seeing what's going on actually inside of them, and then the things that you can do to try to figure out what's going on, to unlock those doors inside of another person's mind and soul, despite whatever you see going on the outside of them. But one of the things that Chase says in this book, the Ellipses Manual, that I always remember, is he says you must see the person's mind, not their body. So despite whatever somebody is saying out of their mouth or showing you physically, or maybe whatever you know about them, whatever resources they have, whatever their background or resume may be, no matter who they know as maybe connections and relationships they have, you must see past all of that and look into a person's mind. Because when a person's mind is not in the right space, they won't be able to utilize all of their resources. They won't be able to activate all of their tangible physical tools, whatever they may be, when their mind is not in the right place. Robert Greene in 33 Strategies of War, he has a chapter where he talks about seeing the mind of the person who is leading the opposing army. So if you are at battle, at war, even if the opposing general has twice as many troops and soldiers as you, and twice as many guns, and twice as much food and rations as your army has, you can still defeat that other general if you attack that general's mental weaknesses. If you find their mental weak spots, you can defeat them physically. This is why in all of life, any type of battle, any type of competition, any type of challenge that we come up against in life, especially when it's interpersonal, when you can figure out what's going on inside of another person, you can defeat whatever they have going on the outside. This is what Chase Hughes means by seeing the mind and not the body, not paying so much attention to the body, but paying attention to the mind, not seeing the army, the size of the army itself, but understanding the mentality of the general and lieutenants who are leading the army. Have you in life, for example, ever encountered a person who seemed to have all the tools to do great things, but they were accomplishing very little with all these tools? You ever dealt with someone like that? Or have you, on the other hand, consequently dealt with a person who had very few tools, at least it seemed on the surface, but they were achieving a whole lot more than what their tools seemed to show they would be capable of? Well, this is the point. Both of those examples are the point. If you have all the physical resources, but you don't have the mindset for utilizing those physical resources, what you become is an underachiever. Somebody who's, as they say, your whole is less than the sum of your parts. On the other hand, when your mind is in the right space, you develop that mental strength before you got the physical tools, or at least you value, or at least you have emphasized your mental strength over the physical tools. Doesn't mean you don't have them, but you understand the value of that mental strength. You develop the tangible tools as a result. You can at least develop the tangible tools as a result of the consistent mindsets and thought habits that you experience and you engage with. Point number 2, today's topic is how to build the mental strength before the physical strength, or why to value, why you should acquire it before the physical strength. Point number 2, if you want to find out a person's capacity, you want to find out how far they can go, you want to find out how good they can actually be, you want to find out what their potential for achievement is, maybe even your own. If you want to find out your own capacity, don't just look at a person's resources or look at a person's measurables, whether that be the size of their army, what their resume is, what the things that they have achieved, how many years they've been in business, how much money they may be making, how much weight they can lift, what their vertical jump is, how many points they scored in the last game that they played in. If you want to find out a person's real capacity, don't just look at their resources and measurables. You got to see how far that person can be pushed. And if you want to find out how far a person can be pushed, or let me rephrase that, when you find out how far a person can be pushed, you're actually finding out their internal fortitude. It's not their external, it's their internal fortitude. Because as I said, you could come across a person who has really big muscles, really impressive. You know, they might be a bodybuilder who goes and stands on the stage in the Speedo and they show off their muscles, and there's muscles in places that you didn't know people could have muscles. But as soon as that person is challenged in some way, maybe not necessarily physically, but challenged in any type of way, maybe emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, those people can fall apart even though they have all the big muscles. And there are other people who have no muscles, don't lift weights at all, but you challenge them, you push them in any type of way, they're going to fight back in such a way that maybe you don't want to challenge them anymore. Everyone has come across people like this before. Maybe I'm describing you as I'm talking about this here. Maybe you're on one side or the other. But when you find out how far people can be pushed, first of all, pushed by themselves, and also how far they can be pushed by other people if necessary, you'll learn that there are a lot of talented people walking this earth who have very low IQs. Now, I may have just lost you there by saying that I'm gonna repeat the sentence and I'll explain what I mean. Because the IQ that I'm talking about, I'm not talking about intelligence quotient. I'm not talking about how smart they are. So the sentence again was, there are a lot of talented people walking this earth who have very low IQs. Even though they may have all the resources, their resources may be very impressive, their IQ is very low. I'm not saying that to mean that they're stupid. The IQ that I'm talking about is I quit. Not intelligence quotient, but I quit. What is your IQ for life? What is your IQ for athletes listening to this? What's your IQ in the gym? What's your IQ in your sports career? For the business people out there, what is your IQ for dealing with a difficult supervisor or boss? What's your IQ for dealing with a jerk coworker? For the entrepreneurs out there, what is your IQ for going through a slow period in your business? What's your IQ for dealing with a customer or a client who turns out to be much more headache than they were actually worth the money that they paid you? What is your IQ? How far can you be pushed? How much can you be challenged? How much bullshit do you need to go through before you just quit? Do remember something. Ultimate success in life is a combination of both tangible and intangible tools. All right, so it's not one or the other. Even though the emphasis of today's episode is the internal fortitude and the mental strength, this is not don't take this whole message of today's episode to mean that tangible tools don't matter. Tangible tools absolutely do matter. And I talked about this in episode number 1103, the greatness equation. The greatness equation explains, and you should listen to the whole episode so you get the whole explanation, but explains in basic terms, when a person has both the physical tools and the internal tools, that's when you can be great. But if you're short on either one, then you're going to be short of reaching your ultimate height. And the challenge for people is not necessarily that you have to develop these in everything you do. You must figure out the space in which you can have both. Because some people, the place they can have both is running a business. Some people is being a teacher. Some people is podcasting. Some people is playing a sport. Some people is something else. You need to figure out where's the space where you can have both. And the challenge that a lot of people have, the problem that many people have, the mistake that they make, is that they try to force themselves into reaching this greatness, making this greatness equation work in a space in which they don't belong. In other words, the athlete or the wannabe athlete who's not really an athlete, the person who's trying to be a writer who can't really write, the person who's trying to be an entrepreneur who is not built for doing so, the person who wants to be a teacher but they can't teach. You need to figure out where's the space that you have the capacity to reach that greatness. Again, that's episode 1103. Go listen to that. You can listen to that as a member of the game group at workonmygame.com/game group. And you can get your first 2 weeks as a member completely for free. The mental capacity, ladies and gentlemen, comes first. Once you figure out that you have the mental capacity, you've been challenged by yourself and by others to show that the mental capacity is there, that leads to the acquisition of the physical tools. Some people will ask, how does an athlete, when you see an athlete who's performing at a really high level, people often ask, if you get a chance to ask that athlete a question or you get to dig into their background, usually people default by looking at their resources. In other words, if you see a basketball player who's a really good shooter, for example, the questions will be something along the lines of, well, how many shots does this person shoot every time that they practice? Or what kind of shooting drills do they do? Or how can I, as a basketball player, I'm trying to get good, how can I shoot the same way that this great shooter also shoots? Let's say somebody like Stephen Curry. How can I shoot the same way that Stephen Curry shoots in terms of my form and my technique? How can I do the same drills that Stephen Curry does? Somebody tell me, how many hours does Stephen Curry practice every single day so I can do the exact same thing? What are some ways that he practices so I can copy doing the exact same things? If you come across someone who's a really great endurance runner, a distance runner, for example, you may ask, well, what's their CO2 max? So I can find out their capacity for taking in wind in their lungs so I can learn how to get mine to the same level. What temperatures do they practice at when they practice? They practice outside, they practice inside. What kind of shoes do they wear when they run? What kind of weightlifting exercises do they do? What kind of stretching do they do every day? How many days a week do they run? How many miles do they run? What's their training program? Can somebody just give me their whole training program? When I was making basketball videos on YouTube from the mid 2000s all the way up through the mid 2010s, basketball players often asked me, and I ended up making programs answering these questions about how I actually practice. What were the drills that you did, Dre, to jump higher so you could dunk? What are some dribbling drills that you do? How do you actually work on your shooting? How do you work on your moves? What are some things I can do if I want to score in the post? How do you work on your footwork? Players would always ask me about these technical, tangible things that they could see, right? So I would make these programs. Here's a dribbling program. Here's a shooting program. Here's vertical jump. Here's how to work on your physical fitness so your body can be in the right shape. Here's post play. Here is crossover moves. Here's scoring moves. Here's the type of moves you can do if you're an undersized player and you're playing against players who are taller than you, and you got to figure out a way to get open and get a shot without getting your shot blocked and getting the ball stolen from you. Here are all these tangible things that you can do. But at the same time, there were a few people who smartly asked me, well, Dre, what about the mental side of things? What brings you to show up every day to do the work in the gym? What allows you to feel confident enough to put yourself out there? How are you mentally tough enough to keep showing up and doing your thing? Somebody once said to me, well, since you're making all these hoop handbooks, that's what I call these basketball programs, the hoop handbook, why don't you make a mental handbook? Because you're always talking about motivation and mindset. Make a mental handbook. So I went and did that. The mental handbook to this day is part of the Bulletproof Bundle, the 4 best books on mindset. And this is the thing that I want you to understand. I'm telling you that story to tell you this. with any kind of athlete, whether that be the runner, the basketball player. If a business person's doing really well in business, what do people want to ask them? Well, what are the ways that you design your website, or who's running your advertisements, or how do you design your programs? How do you know what price to set for your products? How do you know what color to make the buy button on your website? These are all these tangible things that people go asking about and looking for when they see someone has reached success. But let me offer you an alternative of some different questions to ask when you see someone reaching success. Is not how can you copy their tangible tools, because first of all, you may not be able to copy their tangible tools. And second of all, even if you do copy their tangible tools, you will often find that you do not get the same results that they got. Even though you're doing the same things that they did, or at least you think you are, here's what you need to do differently. Ask them, what was the mindset? What was the mental process that you went through that put you in a frame of mind that led you to having these tangible tools? So instead of asking the basketball player, how many shots do you shoot every day, Steph Curry? What are some drills that you do? How can I shoot with the exact same form and technique as you? Instead, ask Steph Curry a different question. What's your mindset when you get on the court? How do you think about the game? What is your mentality when it comes to practicing? Or what is going through your mind when you're going up against another player and you know that their whole game plan, or another team's whole game plan, is in stopping you from doing your thing? Or what do you do when you got an opponent trash talking you? Or what's your mental process for how you even became the type of player that you are? Because here's the thing. When you can understand the mental process, when you get the mental process in place, the right mental tools, that mental strength in place like we're talking about here today, you will figure out the physical tools. And understanding your physical tools, the way that you do things physically, may not be the same as that great endurance runner, or the great business person or entrepreneur, or the great shooter like a Stephen Curry. You may not do things the same way as them, but when you figure out what's going on mentally from the inside, then you can figure out what's going on the outside. Many people make the mistake of looking at only what's going on the outside, and then maybe getting to the inside part later, or not paying attention to it at all. I suggest you pay attention to it first. And even if you only have to pay attention to it exclusively and not anything else, you should do this. Again, the Greatness Equation, episode 1103, when you put the combination of the tangible and the intangible, with the intangible coming first and ranking higher in priority, then you'll figure out the tangible stuff. And again, you may figure out how to do it your own way, but without that internal control, without that internal fortitude, you can have all the physical tangible tools that you want. You're not going to get the results that you expected. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to build the mental strength before you build the physical strength, or how the inside is more important than what's on the outside. How to build your mental strength up yourself. How can you do this on your own? Let's say you don't have a coach, or you don't have some person who's a great role model for you to follow or to ask questions. How do you actually start building mental strength on your own? Here's how. You must place yourself in situations that are above your current level, or at least above the level that you've proven. The highest level that you've proven yourself, place yourself in situations that are a level above that. Somewhere where you are not quite fully comfortable, where you will have to punch up, so to speak. You're going to have to reach up a little bit mentally in order to succeed. Usually if you got to reach up physically, you're probably going to have to reach up mentally in some way too. But find places where you're going to have to go to a little bit higher level than what you've proven to be comfortable with, what you've proven to be capable of. Go to a higher level than that. If you got to go to a level higher than that to succeed, that's where you need to be. And you need to continue to be there as consistently as possible. One of my college coaches, he told us at the beginning of basketball season, he said, my goal in practice is to make all the players as uncomfortable as possible. I want to make you uncomfortable in practice by making you do drills when you're tired, making you do these full court sprints, making you do movements that you're not used to doing, challenging you with stuff that you probably didn't expect to happen, making the practices so hard that when you get into games, it's a whole lot easier. Why did he want to do that? Because he wanted to know how people responded to challenges, and he wanted to know who he could trust in the game. Because if you can deal with these challenges of practice, this discomfort that's going on in practice, then I know I can trust you in the game, because I'm going to make you more uncomfortable here than any game or any opponent is ever going to make you during the season. So that was his mindset. He was on the right track. You cannot find out, test, or improve your mental strength or that of others if you never challenge yourself to go further than what you're used to. I'm going to say that one more time. You can never find out, test, or improve your mental strength or that of anyone else. Those of you who happen to be leaders, you have people who are following you and they're going to do what you say do. You can't improve anyone's mental strength if that person, whoever they are, is never challenged to go further than what they are used to. And I want you to understand something. Let's put this out on the table. There is a risk involved in challenging yourself to go further than what you're used to. And taking on that risk comes down to the confidence that you have in your ability to handle risk. If you don't have a lot of confidence in your ability to handle risk, to handle challenge, to handle the fact that you're going to be placed in uncomfortable positions, then you have a limit on how far you're going to be going. You have a limit to your capabilities. There's a limit to your potential. A lot of people out there are risk-averse individuals. There are a lot of people out there, some of them listening to me right now, who don't want to do anything that does not come with a guarantee. Anything that comes with any kind of risk, they don't want to be involved in. And this is how most people become mentally weak. You are not willing to take on risk. You have no confidence in your ability to handle risk. Therefore, you never engage in risk. Therefore, you're never challenging yourself to get better. You're remaining in your comfort zone. You are maintaining the status quo. And because the world is moving and you're maintaining the status quo at neutral, you're losing. This is a problem. A lot of people have programmed themselves to avoid challenge to their status quo. They don't want to challenge the status quo, which means the status quo will never change. They're going to stay where they are, but it never actually is the status quo. It actually gets older and older every single day. So you're losing more and more every day. The status quo is for losers, people. If I haven't made that clear enough, if you've been listening to the show long enough, let's recap today's topic, which is how to build mental strength before physical strength, or why to value mental strength over physical strength, or before physical strength. Let's put it that way. Strength and power do not start in the gym. They don't start in the weight room. They start internally. They're developed in the mind before they occur in a tangible world. Point number one, the mind controls the body. There are people walking the streets with big muscles and no heart, no courage, no internal fortitude. And on the other hand, there are people who never lifted a weight in their lives who are tougher than the bodybuilders. Intelligence behavior expert Chase Hughes says, see the mind and not the body. Robert Greene talks about this. When you're going to war against another army, don't just look at how many soldiers they have and how many guns they're shooting. Look at the mindset of the general who's running that army. Because if you can control that, you can control everything that they do. If you have all the physical resources, but not the mindset for utilizing the resources, you become an underachiever. Your whole is less than the sum of your parts. On the other hand, when you have the right mental capacity, you will be able to develop the tangible tools as a result of your consistent mindsets and thought habits. Point number two. You want to find out a person's capacity, whether your own or anyone else's. Don't just look at your resources and measurables. You got to find out how far you can be pushed. Because there are a lot of people out there with very low IQs, and that's not their intelligence. That's their I quit. That's what the IQ stands for. Remember that ultimate success is a combination of both the tangible and the intangible. As we talked about in episode 1103, the greatness equation. The mental capacity comes first and it leads to the acquisition of the physical tools. Point number three. How to build mental strength on your own. You must place yourself in situations that are above your current level, above what you have proven to be capable of, to where you have to reach up a little bit mentally in order to succeed. Like one of my college coaches said, I want to make all my players as uncomfortable as possible in practice so that I know who to trust and I know how you're going to respond to being uncomfortable. So when we get into games, it's easier than it is in practice. You cannot find out your mental strength if you never test yourself and you never go further than what you are used to. There is a risk involved. That risk, your ability to take on that risk, comes down to your level of confidence and your ability to handle risk. A lot of people are risk averse, don't want to try anything that doesn't come with a guarantee. This is how most people become and remain mentally weak, because they have programmed themselves to avoid challenge to the status quo. Ladies and gentlemen, status quo is for losers. Now, what I suggest you do to build up your mental strength is go get the Bulletproof Bundle. These are my 4 best books on the mental game: discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. 4 books physically shipped worldwide. Go to workonmygame.com/BB for the Bulletproof Bundle. Again, that's workonmygame.com/BB for the Bulletproof Bundle. Work on your game. Dre all day.